Hey there, YouTube. East25 here, coming at you with the first episode of a new series of Hades guides called the Supercodex. In the Supercodex, we're going to break down each part of the game and talk with some detail about strategies for integrating or dealing with all the different elements of Hades. Now, if that hasn't put you to sleep yet, let's get started. Before we begin, I just want to point out that there are spoilers in this series. Not for the main plot of the game, but for the different parts of the game's progression systems and enemies. So, fairly warned, BD, says I. Let's get to it. In the first episode of the Supercodex, we're going to be talking about Tartarus, first of the biomes that Zagreus must pass on his way out of Hell. We're going to cover different enemies, traps, and the region's event room, as well as a few more details. Let's start with some basics. There are 15 rooms in Tartarus, and 4 of them are set rooms. What I mean by a set room is that while the rewards might change, there are certain aspects, such as the layout of the room or the general number of enemies, that will be the same every run. The first set room is, well, the first room. Zagreus does his best superhero landing impression, and you'll be treated to one of the game's rewards, followed by a small number of enemies to go ham on to get the run going. The next set room is room 13, the pre-boss room. While the reward here is what you selected when you went through the door, this room will always be devoid of enemies. So you can get a snack, maybe practice some mindfulness meditation before you go up against the boss. Mindful. The other 2 set rooms are the boss room, which we'll cover towards the end of the video, and the transition room between Tartarus and the next biome of Hell. That's a pretty good album name. Biome of Hell. Another unique chamber in Tartarus is the event room, which features Sisyphus, whose name I can honestly never spell correctly. The graceful former king has no combat in his room, and rewards Zagreus with either health, darkness, or obol, which, let's just call it gold. I find obol tends to be the most useful, unless I'm desperate for either health or darkness. As your relationship with Sisyphus progresses, you can give nectar to Boldy and gain a small boost to one of 7 things, ranging from a minor damage bonus to a minor ambiguity bonus. There are 3 kinds of traps in Tartarus. For some reason, Hades seems to think that trespassers are completely blind to squares, as both of the floor tile traps, the spikes and the arrows, are triggered by standing on said squares. Both of these can be dashed through pretty safely, so make sure you don't dash onto them. The spike bomb trap can only be triggered by Zagreus and has a pretty obvious red circle around it and a delayed explosion. It deals big damage to enemies, so feel free to let it finish them off. Tartarus boasts 8 enemies, 3 mini-bosses and 3 bosses. Thankfully, you only have to fight 1 boss per run, and 1 mini-boss maximum. Fun fact, if you delay going into the mini-boss chamber, which is marked by a god boon reward with the skull in the corner, long enough, you can skip the mini-boss fight. Neat! Let's go over the enemies. Wretched thugs are slow-moving beefcakes with a high amount of damage and range. Thugs have more health than most Tartarus enemies, but telegraph their attacks and take longer to turn around than the elderly in horror movies, so feel free to dash behind them and dish out damage. Make sure to let them know it's nothing personal. When they're elite, that's when they have the yellow armor, thugs have a faster attack. Witches fire purple balls of energy at Zagreus. Note that you can contest these projectiles with your attack, and they can be deflected, but you'll want to stay moving and close the gap quickly. Try to rely on your peripheral vision, and don't box yourself into a corner where it's hard to dash away from the orbs. When elite, the witches fire 3 shots instead of 1. Louts are the big goons of Tartarus. They wind up and charge at the player, a more telegraphed yet farther ranging and faster attack than the thugs. When elite, they wind up quicker and charge at a faster timing. Louts track Zag's movements pre-charge much better than thugs. The key with Louts is to always dash perpendicular to the line they'll take to hit you, and then strike once they've passed. Pests are just that. Pests. A nuisance. They hide in the corners amongst conveniently similar looking vases and throw out proximity bombs that blow up a short time after Zagreus steps into their area of effect. I tend to leave pests for last in a room, and I'm not afraid to take a step back from a combo to avoid getting blown up. When elite, pests dredge up embarrassing personal memories if a mine hits you, so unless you're into humiliation, stay out of the blast. Numbskulls are the fastest moving melee enemies in Tartarus, charging into Zag after a short delay. When elite, they're faster on both counts. They have little health, but numbskulls are like internet ads. 1 or 2 is barely noticeable, 8 is annoying and slows you down, and they love to butt in while you're busy with another enemy. Hey, if you enjoyed that simile, why don't you hit that like button? Ha! High school literary humor! Skullamats are the only Tartarus enemy that doesn't directly attack Zagreus. Instead, they spawn numbskulls. They spawn them faster when elite, and the skulls they spawn are also elite. Dash attacking is a very useful thing to do in Hades in general, but is especially important to kill Skullomats while not leaving yourself open to the spawning numbskulls. Stay moving. Ringers don't appear until after you've made it to the surface at least once. They seek Zagreus out, throwing a lunge that stuns him in place if they connect. When elite, they don't stand still as long after attacking. Prioritize these enemies. You don't want to get wombo comboed by them and louts or thugs, that's for sure. Brimstones are the last of the Tartarus enemies, and at first glance they seem the most dangerous, with their killer laser beams hurting Zagreus into walls, traps, and other terrible consequences. The beam moves even faster when they're elite. The thing to remember with Brimstones is that you can dash through the beam without taking damage. Try to angle the dashes so you can gap close on them or gain time to hit them from range. The Inferno Bombers are the first of the mini-bosses encountered in Tartarus. They throw bombs around both themselves and directly at Zagreus, which explode after a short time. The best way to approach this fight is to be most cognizant of the bombs. The bombers have no quick-fire means of hitting Zag, so try not to get stuck in any long animations, and save a dash for a quick reposition. Remember, they drop a bomb on death. Doomstone is a good general damage test for your build. It floats around and links beams with the shards of it that you've smashed off. When it holds still and spreads its beams in a radial pattern, dash away from it to get more space between the beams, then head back in to punish it. Stripping armor quickly can make this a very easy fight. The Wretched Sneak will also appear around the same time as the Ringers. The Sneak prefers shooting projectiles from range, after which it will quickly disappear. Strafe to the side to avoid this attack, but have a dash ready for when the Sneak appears behind you and goes for a melee hit. Once that's dodged, there's a small opening to deliver big damage before it vanishes again. The three bosses of Tartarus are the Fury Sisters. The first of the three fights is Megara. The other two sisters have variations on Meg's moves, so let's go over them all. Remember, you only fight one of them on any given run. Meg has a devastating lunge attack where she'll pause and then go bullet train on Zag's ass if he's far away. You will also, if Zagreus is too close after a short delay, spin her whip around her and deal area damage. These two moves form the core of the dance you do with Meg. If you have a melee weapon, you're going to want to stand far enough away that Meg goes for a charge, then hit her after she misses, then back off before the whip hits. If you're ranged, bait out the melee hit and get away before retaliating, then dodge the charge. Meg also lets out a stream of small shots. These are harder to avoid the closer Zagreus is, so only play this attack close to Meg if you can deflect the shots through a boon of some kind. Finally, Meg drops Circles of Death that have a short delay for you to get a hit in before dashing away from them. The timing on this just takes some getting used to. Meg summons various Tartarus enemies to help her. Take them down when she's invulnerable for a short time after you've dealt 75, 50, and 25% of her HP, and the fight should be yours. Alecto is the aggressive Fury Sister. She's a Karen, and your blood is the manager. Her lunge and whip attack are faster, but more front-facing than Meg's, so dodge behind her if you can. Her Circles of Death follow you around, so you can use a circular pattern around her to still score some hits. Her small shot attack fills her with Rage-a-Hall, and you don't want her to get full up on that, or you're in for some pain. Her speed goes way up. Alecto summons fewer Tartarus enemies than Meg, but she also summons a Beyblade to slice Zag into pieces as they bounce around the space. Unlike other projectiles, these can't really be contested, so stay out of their slow-moving path if you can. You can't stop Alecto from full raging at 25% health, but keep your cool and find a safe spot to get hits in, and you should emerge victorious. Tisiphone, the third Fury Sister, is all about the murder. But as opposed to Meg, who summons units, or Alecto, who throws damaging move after damaging move at Zagreus, Tisiphone fights by controlling space. She tries to quick stun Zag with a whip hit before her lunge attack, but she'll lunge towards that location even if she misses, firing off shots. Her close range area whip only comes out after a 2-dash sequence, first at Zagreus, then in a random direction, followed by the whip hit. Her small shots fire slower but go in all directions. Her Circles of Death travel towards Zag in a line, and then when she's low HP, they go in the 4 cardinal directions. These attacks get more dangerous as the fight goes on because Tisiphone actually shrinks the battlefield every time you take a quarter of her HP, until eventually there's little room to move. She requires some practice learning her erratic moves, but once you know where to stand, the fight becomes much easier. And that's it for the first episode of the Supercodex. I hope you enjoyed this little guide to navigating Tartarus. If you enjoyed this video, or listened to it to fall asleep, do all those things you're supposed to do with a good YouTube video below. I stream Hades every Tuesday and Friday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time. You can check out the Twitch link below as well. See you next time.